Hello, beautiful souls out there. I hope you're able to get out in nature like Starlight was. So anyway, because Starlight's got a lot of stuff to do, I'm here. And anyway, thank you for the new subscribers. Yay! Thank you for the two that joined me. And I might have met you, one of you, I think I met at a gas station, and it was like a quick hello and boom, goodbye kind of thing. Two ladies that it might have been, but I'm not sure. But because I did, it was a quick meet and greet kind of thing at the gas station a couple nights ago. But anyway, whoever it is that just recently subscribed to my YouTube channel, thank you. And more than likely you met me in person where I am. So also a big, huge thank you, yay, to all of you who have been here from the beginning. Yeah, you've been here since the beginning and all the way through. So thank you to all of you who have been here from the beginning, or maybe somewhere in between, or maybe, like I said, the ones that just joined this YouTube channel. This is where you can feel like family to grow. This is a that doesn't mean that we're always going to get along, and it doesn't mean that we're always going to agree. It's just, let's get along anyway, and see how we can make a difference in the world by working on ourselves, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, so that's what this channel is about. So thank you for all of you, and if you are new to my YouTube channel, welcome, and you can find me on YouTube, and that is at Starlight, and that is Kathy with a K Dingman. Plus, you can give my videos a thumbs up, and you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. Don't be afraid, don't be shy. Swing by and say hi to Starlight. And you can leave me a message down below. Plus, you can share my videos with your family or friends. Let's see. A dog and a cat. We haven't said a dog and a cat in a while. And also, you could follow me on Instagram at 1995 Starlight, or on Facebook, and that is Kathy with a K Dingman Starlight. And also, not last but least, but if you would love to send any love donations, you can through my Cash App, because Starlight always has a need. There's always something. I am helping I do help homeless people everywhere I go, and so you can do that through my Cash App, and I will have the information here. Ping, there it is. Now, this is for anyone, and because this does take time, this doesn't happen overnight. But are you having a really hard time really expressing yourself and really saying really what you want to say to other people? Wow, look at the hands up. There's a lot of hands. There's a lot of people that struggle with this. You might have a friend, or a loved one out there. Hello. Hello friend, hello loved one out there. Or, somebody that you just met and you don't know them, somebody out in your community, out in public, maybe at a park or hiking trail or something like that, and you might have, got a good conversation going, maybe at work, maybe with your coworkers, yeah, maybe with your boss, how about your parents? Ouch. Your brothers and sisters, do you have a hard time really expressing really what you want to say? Yes, there's a lot of hands up. So this video is to help you, so you are able to really tell people in a good manner. It doesn't. We don't have to yell at people, because there are definitely a lot of families. I've witnessed them out in public. Heard them. Out in public. I actually heard a guy today freaking out on a phone. Right outside. Like nobody's out there seeing this. So. We don't have to yell and scream to get our message across, and it is wise, really make sure you have everything, make sure, because Starlight has been guilty of this, and it's okay. It's okay, because there's a lot of times when it comes to people, there's miscommunications, misunderstandings. So don't beat yourself up. Hang on, Starlight, it's going to raise this up a little bit higher, just the background here, and I've changed settings here. So it takes time to be brave enough and to really express yourself to the fullest with people that you love. And it could even be people that that intimidate you in some way. Ooh, isn't that tough? You might have had like some kind of like with family, we'll say family, because we all came from some kind of family, or somebody brought us up, and I believe they're the toughest people, because they know us more than most, but not all the time, depending on what kind of relationship you have with your family and how often do you see them, because just because you have a family, it doesn't mean that they really know who you are today, especially if you don't spend a lot of time with them, or maybe you're afraid to be yourself around them. And that is what is about what I'm doing on my YouTube channel, is being my authentic self. And that means, because Starlight is a new version of myself. Kathy, with a K, Dingman, is an old version of myself. That's the version most of my family members are used to. But even that old version of myself, my old version of myself didn't have a voice. So I did. In my old version of myself, I let people run flat over top of me. My brother that is no longer here, he was trying to help me, but I didn't understand it before. Even though he said he was trying to help me out, it wasn't the way I was thinking that he would help me out. Sometimes people will try to get you upset and and angry, so then it gets you to you end up finally saying something, and it might not be really the way you wanted it, but it's a starter. That gets you started, of getting your voice out and expressing yourself. When people really push your buttons and you just explode inside, and it just, whatever comes out, and it doesn't even matter if it came out right. It's just that you did something. So this video is to help you out, is that we do need to actually let our family know, if there's been problems, but make sure, because like I said earlier, is that there's many times there's miscommunications, misunderstandings, and that happens a lot with families, and that's why it's best to ask questions, if they are available, to answer them right away. Not everybody is gonna, respond right away to a question. Sometimes people ignore your questions, so that way, you don't know really, you asked them a question, but they didn't even answer and tell you the answer. And then when that happens, then our imagination, and we create this scenario in our mind, because they didn't even respond back to us, they ignored us, whatever. And so that makes things harder on your part, because now it's a guessing game. Now you don't know where you stand, because they're not answering, they're not communicating with you. So and those cases are very challenging, because in a normal setting, normally when you ask people questions, like if somebody said something and you didn't know what they meant, but you got upset, it's good to ask, what did you mean when you said that? Because they might know exactly what they mean, but you might be interpreting it wrong, and that happens many times in many relationships. So that's what I'm talking about, is that you really got to be careful of making sure that you're not missing something, and before you want to talk to them, either, I love face-to-face better than, calling somebody up on a phone, way better than texting or emailing. In person is my way to go. I really, even though I make videos on YouTube, I really want to get, I love interacting with people. I love to see them in real time. And that's why Starlight is busy. So I love meeting people face to face. That way, you know what? I got them right there. And the body language and all that stuff that goes along with it, and their tone of their voice says a lot, about what they're going through. And you can pick up so much information face to face than calling on the phone, because on a phone you can't, unless it's on video chat, you can't see them, but you can hear them, and texting, you can't hear them or see them. So you're missing out on a lot of information because there's no emotions or anything through texting. It's just words on a text message. And it's so hard to understand really what people, where are they coming from, what are they talking about? And that's why you really, 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 really want to ask questions. But like I said, not all the time the people are there available, to answer your questions. So you don't create this bigger monster that, you thought, oh, they're a monster, because of what they're doing right now. And because they don't talk to you and they don't communicate with you and they don't express themselves to you, then it makes problems even worse in the relationship because they're not there responding right away like you were hoping. So, but if you have people that are able to communicate, and if there's something that's been eating you up inside and it could be, with relationships, a love couple where, you're really missing them, you work, they work, you got kids, life happens. And but you realize that they're really not there with you. They're there, but they're not really there with you. And so that could be a problem, where there's people, what ends up happening, instead of actually saying, I really want to spend more time with you, is there a way that you can, make more space for me, so we can have, so I can have more time because we're both working, where, you need to communicate with them and let them know that. But not everybody does that. A lot of people, what they do, instead of going to their partner, who with a guy or a girl, instead of going to them and saying, hey, I really want to spend more time together, I know you got a job and I know you got this and that, but can you have more time with me? Because, this is why I got together with you in the first place, is so I wouldn't be spending, all my time by myself. But lately I feel like, feel like I'm spending more time alone with myself, which, hey, I love my own company. But what ends up happening is people don't communicate that with their love partner, and so what they end up doing is they end up getting upset and attitudes, and remarks. You could have a remark to them. Also, if you don't really know where they are, it could bring up jealousy, and it could bring up a lot of problems, in a relationship, wondering where are they, how come they're, am I doing something wrong? How come they're not spending time with me? Do they want to spend time with me? Are they mad at me? Or are they, so it goes on and on and on of the what ifs, and that is why you instead of ignoring the problem, whatever pops up, and it doesn't have to be this picture here that I'm showing you, but this happens a lot to couples. Instead of saying, hey, I want to be, spend more time with you, instead, they don't say nothing, and they just keep going like nothing ever happened, because they're embarrassed. They're not ready to open up and express themselves, and the ego will stop you from doing that. The ego doesn't want to get uncomfortable like that and say, because of pride and all this stuff will get in the way of you even expressing yourself. And depending on who you're dealing with, not everybody is easy to deal with as far as communication goes. But you really want to communicate with them and say, break it down. You could break it down, or you could get straight to the point and say exactly what's on your mind, which is the best scenario there is. Instead of beating around the bush and, kind of like, hey, are you mad at me? There's, oh no, I'm not mad at you. Okay, mark that off the list, and, hey, do you want to get together this weekend? You gotta get out there and reach out and get their attention, and also you gotta make sure, is there something that they might be mad at you about something? Maybe they don't, because that is a lot of times with relationships, you did something, you could have done something, or there could have been a misunderstanding or miscommunication where they don't want to talk to you, so they're avoiding you. So that is why you really want to really communicate with them, and you don't want this to sit around very long, because it creates more of a problem later on down the road, because our imaginations, all of us can be guilty of that. If the person goes out, and they're gone the whole time, and they say they're at their friend's house, and then they come home, and then they're not doing their part at the house, like keeping up things around the house, and then they're in bed, you want to, guys, I'm going to pick on the guys for this one. You might have been hoping, hey, I would love to, like get alone with her tonight when the kids are asleep, if you have kids, and, have that, alone time with her, if you know what I mean, like, get romantic with her. But then she gets home and she's getting late, and then now she's too tired to even, she just wants to go to sleep. And it keeps on happening. This happens a lot in relationships because there's no communication. They're just, not everybody can read your mind. Not everybody knows what you're going through. And that is why you can't just think that they know that you made it obvious, because people have a lot of stuff going on in their headspace. And so they could have a lot on their plate. They could be really busy at work, but there's got to be balance in a relationship with, like spend time with God, higher power or source or whatever you want to name it, spending time alone with themselves. That's the most important after spending time with God or the universe, and then it's supposed to be with their loved ones. And that's what you got to really watch out. There's people, and I know people right now, is guess what? They're chasing a dollar bill. It's like, and this happens in a lot of relationships. It's a competition of who can make the most money. Who's going to make the most money? When it comes to paying bills. Hey, I do this many hours and I'm getting this much money. And I'm look at me, I'm doing all these hours, and I'm, but now they don't even have time to even spend, with themselves or even with their family, and it causes a lot of stress. So their order is wrong. They're putting money before the relationship, and that is what you definitely got to watch out for. That is, where they're not even spending time with themselves, to get alone and clear their head and all that stuff. So it is so important that you, whoever I'm talking to, has your ordering right. And that is why it's so wise to make sure you clear any messes out that, that there is. That way you don't give them any reason why they're avoiding you. Say, hey, you know what? I know you're upset with me. Sometimes it takes a long time for either men or women to really face their own shadows and realize that, that they're at fault in the relationship somewhere. And, it could be all kinds of different things. It could be anger, a jealousy spirit, a lonely spirit. There's all kinds of spirits that they could have and not even be aware of it, or they are aware of it, but they don't want to get right with themselves, and they don't want to, make things right with their partner. So it does complicate things in a relationship, because if you're holding things in, even from the past, not forgiving them fully, I could tell somebody, I forgive you, but, then I need that, it's crazy, I need that alone time, and I meditate, and I have to release that out of my heart chakra to fully clear that out of me and say, you really hurt me, you really bothered me, I'm upset with you. You purposely did something to me, and you were purposely trying to trigger me for whatever reason. Or like in relationships, it could be maybe spending time talking with a coworker, and that's the opposite sex, working with them and spending a lot of time with them, but that's part of the job, where it can bring up jealousy and all that stuff. And even though there's nothing going on with your loved one and that person, it really can bring up problems in a relationship. And that's why you need to express yourself, even if it's embarrassing, and don't be afraid. It's best just to make an appointment, with them and say, we really need to talk. I can't hold this anymore. You've been wanting to, guys, you've been wanting to make love to her for the longest time. And, but you're not, you got to face this big ass obstacle in order for that to even happen. And women, you might want to spend time with him, but maybe your jealousy and, putting the past against him is holding you back from getting close, where you're, having like different kind of feelings and emotions. That is, your ego can get in the way and say, you don't need to talk to him. You don't want to listen to that voice. Because if you're really trying to work on that relationship, that's the voice that you need to shut out and say, no, I need to do this, and I'm going to do it now. I need to, there's got to be the right place and the right time when it comes to communication, in a private setting, not with the kids around, absolutely not, because it's easier said than done. I was not in a relationship when I had my kids, so I didn't have that problem. I don't even know what I would be like in that situation, but it is so important never to argue in front of your children, because I know what it's like in that setting, so it really scares the kids when they witness that stuff, and it really can shut them out, and it can, I know from experience in my own life, Starlight would hide somewhere, get out of the house and go somewhere just to get away from the noise, because I didn't feel safe around, slamming doors, throwing cast iron pans, you never know. People do some crazy stuff in relationships. So you don't want to do that to your kids, because it has ways of affecting them in a deep way that you might not even understand fully, They might be afraid of their own well-being when in those situations. So it does take time. It doesn't happen overnight, but you can't keep on putting it on the back burner either and saying, hey, I'll do it next, I'll do it tomorrow. When there's this, you've got to say, hey, we need to talk. Let me know when you're available, when the kids are sleeping, and talk like adults, you don't have to yell and scream, and like I said, it's none of the kids' business what goes on unless you're going to split up with that person, because the less for the kids to know about, in your relationship as far as how well you're getting along, the better it is for the kids, because kids are really smart. If they get to know some of the juicy stuff going on in a relationship, they can cause a big, huge problem in that relationship, or even talk to other people about your own private business. So it is so important. Don't be afraid, even when it comes to other people, to express yourself. Say, you know what, this person's been doing this. Are they worth winning them over? Or do you got to let them go? Sometimes you already know, I got to let them go. This has been going on for years. Starlight already did talk to them. So you know what, that's if you already did and there's no change in their life, it's up to you. I can't tell you what to do, but you might want to let them go. But if they're worth, saving, those relationships, is say, hey, we need to talk, because a lot of problems start even from childhood, even families getting their noses into your business, and a lot of, I thought it was normal for families to talk bad about their other family members. Hey, did you hear brother, my brother did this and my brother did that, and my, hey, did you hear that dad did this and dad did that? I thought that was a normal way of living, is family members talking behind each other's backs and backstabbing each other. I thought that was normal, but it's not normal. So, it is, I grew up thinking that was, gossiping about family members and talking to other people, and, it causes so much problems. And, a lot of families do that out in the world, and, they think it's normal. It's not good. It's not good. It causes so much jealousy and fights in the family, disagreements and all this stuff, so you really want to be open with people right in their face, and not behind their back, telling people about their business. But you really want to make a time privately and spill the beans. Say, I've been holding this shit in too long. You know what it's like holding your shit in too long? It's painful. It's painful. Eventually, you're going to have to run to the bathroom, and you're going to have to hurry up, pull your pants down, and take that shit. Because you can't hold that shit in forever, because it's going to tear you apart. Every time that you think about that person, you're causing more stress to your body. You need to release that, just like taking a shit, and say, I'm going to get this off my chest. I've been holding this too long. It's been something for forever. Families, especially families, they grew up, there's things that, happened a long time ago, and it's been a problem their whole life, is how come we're not as close? I thought we would have been closer than what we are, because it's things that happened in the past, forgiving each other, talking about each other, and say, hey, why did you do these things to me when I was younger? Those things happened a long time ago, but you really hurt me, and this is why I was treating you this way. I was doing this because you hurt me, and I didn't understand how you could do that. I thought, we were family. So you got to communicate with people, because you'll be holding that stuff like number 2 or number 4, and it's painful, and it has a way affecting your whole body. So you got to let that shit go, and you got to communicate with them whether you want to or not, and kick the ego out of the way. Ego, say thank you, but right now I need to say what I need to say because I've been holding this shit in too long. I love you so much. Express yourself. Learn to express yourself. When you do, you're going to feel a whole lot better, and you'll be surprised. Even though you're the one expressing yourself to the person that you've been holding this stuff in for your whole life, or even years of holding shit in, you'll make them feel better too, because they'll be like, oh my, I didn't even know this. I wish you told me. Why didn't you tell me this? How come you held this shit in all this time? We could have gotten, our relationship would have been way better a long time ago if we just communicated, and we could have gotten that all squared away. But no, people are afraid to open up, because the fear is your biggest enemy. We're thinking that, I can't do this because of, things that happened in the past. But you got to let that fear go. It's an illusion. It's not even real. We create that fear in our own head, in our own mind, in our own thoughts, thinking that we cannot bring that up when we really need to. That way we can kind of patch things up and have a better relationship with those ones, especially family or people that you've been around for a long time with. So anyway, I love you so much. You don't want to hold that shit in. You'll feel a whole lot better when you do. You finally can breathe. You finally can start a new chapter with that person, those people, whoever it is, or you might have to let them go if they're not willing to listen, if they're just, their ego is controlling them, you might have to let those people go. I love you so much. This is Starlight. Namaste. This is Starlight, love, light, and peace.